He is the author of Dark Eon, and he is the occasional host of the very great War Room podcast show. You might know Steve Bannon, and our guest here has been on this show quite a few times. I think he has been on the show more than any other guest, honestly. One of my favorite writers, one of my favorite thinkers, and that is the one and only Joe Allen. What's up, Joe?
Cashman, you're too kind. You really are.
Hey, I mean it, man. I think you are tracking what I think is the most important stuff going on in the world.
It's very good to be here with your clanker friend, too.
Yeah, you want? Yeah, maybe they can't see him in there. Let's see. So this is Joe's slave. He doesn't like robots, but he did bring a robot with him. No, this robot's been with us for quite some time now. Does he have what's his name again?
That's Herbie.
Herbie Clank Clank. He's not very graceful.
No, he doesn't have any legs.
He's a good little guy. He doesn't have the kind of femininity that I prefer in a robot, but you know, whatever. He's mean looking. He can scare off the burglars.
Would you allow a robot in your house?
Hell no.
Not for nothing. If they're like, what about a Roomba?
No.
No. What about something to fold your laundry?
Never.
AI girlfriend?
I don't even use a dishwasher.
Not even a dishwasher?
Literally.
Really?
You know, I do have a garbage disposal.
Ooh, that's a little too close to a robot.
I keep it around in case I need to torture people. You know, get secrets out of them. Kind of like with the blender and Goonies with Chunk and with the Savellis. What the fuck their name was? Yeah,
it's like waterboarding, but with dish soap.
I can't say. Can I say swear words?
You can.
Can I say ethnic slurs?
Go for it.
Like tin skin. Can I call this little guy a tin skin?
Yes,
or a wire back?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. They really don't like that. He might shoot you.
Clanker hard R.
Chrome dome.
This is a perfect lead into my first question that I had for you today. When did you become racist against robots?
Very early on, as a teenager. I think that although I'm accepting of and love all of humanity, like every last person, no intolerance whatsoever for any human being, as long as they don't come near me. But robots, no, man. I mean, I go visit robots. I interviewed a few robots. I went to Switzerland and interviewed a lot of robots.
Yeah, I want to get to that because you've done a ton of traveling and you are on the front lines of the robot war. That if you listen to this show, you know we're in a war against the robots. But what was it that happened to you when you were a kid? Like, why were you radicalized against robots? Was it Short Circuit? Was it Johnny Five?
I could tell you the short version, or I could tell you the long version. The short version is that I tore open my third eye with a little bit of that Sandoz special. I don't know if it was a Rainbow Family special. And that produced a profound insight that has never left me, but also more mundane things. My grandfather probably put it in me when I was really young. He didn't really take the fundamentalist idea that the TV is the one-eyed demon, the Cyclops, but he did think that it was a good metaphor for what was happening, and he always pointed at the television and said it's the biggest wasteland on the face of the planet.
That's great.
And there were a number of other things, too. A big thing was reading Ted Kaczynski's Industrial Society and Its Future.
He was a prophet. I mean, I'm not so much into the violence, but I do understand what he saw. He was a professor, right? And he was in the universities. He saw decades ago what people are just now coming to terms with, of how the ideological rot is destroying those institutions. I mean, he saw all that, and he saw the issues with the advancements in technology. It's wild. So you read that at a young age? Was that your bedtime stories?
So I dropped out of high school when I was very young and got a GED, but then I either had to get a real job or go to college. So I went to college to waste some time and money, mostly government money, but also my grandmother's money too.
Shout out to Grandma.
Sorry, Mama. I'm sure that she got enough amusement. But I spent a lot of time in the writing lab on the internet when I was a kid because we didn't have it at home really. And read the Unabomber Manifesto. I can still remember like the HTML webpage with the kind of black background, maybe yellow or green text or something unseemly.
Yeah.
Like that. But yeah, the Unabomber, so the Industrial Society and Its Future does, I think, exhaust many of the options or possibilities of how technological society evolves. there are brighter futures he probably could have included, but he's the Unabomber, so he wouldn't do that. But definitely the logic of power and especially human disempowerment, that a technological society doesn't allow human beings to express their innate, vigorous instincts, really their tribal instincts. Kaczynski called it the power principle.
Right.
And it didn't necessarily mean abuse, but to exert one's will, to exert one's power is thwarted.
Yeah,
in technological society.
It's completely, I think, all this stuff has robbed us. I mean, people will say, well, look at all the luxury we have today. You know, we can do this right now.
Yeah.
This is great. And we can have people out there listening, and it's amazing. They can call in. But I feel like there are consequences that people aren't taking into account on how this is going to mutilate humanity. You know, do you think we're at that point now? We're not, as humans overall, not acknowledging it? Or is it not as bad yet, and it's going to get way worse?
You know, I'm not one of the apocalyptic doomers. I think that you should take those ideas seriously. Ideas of intelligence explosions and, you know, sudden catastrophic effects of uncontrollable AI. I think it's a very low probability, but sort of like with a nuclear reactor melting down, it's the sort of thing you probably want to at least consider. But no, I think that what some call gradual disempowerment is a more likely outcome. It's already happening.
Yeah.
But they put the center of gravity on the robots, on the machines, right? Even in that scenario, it's the machines themselves, the momentum of all of these automated systems and humans dependent on them that will, over the course of time, see human beings sort of being first disempowered and then phased out as the machines slowly take over. I think it's more a matter of the people who produce the machines deploying them on us. I think that's the best way to think about it.
Because they have no ethics?
They have ethics. They just aren't the ethics that I would want them to have.
Ethics for them.
They have principles, for sure. They're just not principles that I share.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these people, though, like a lot of the AI people in Silicon Valley, the ones that are the most known, like an Altman or a Musk, they do make these comparisons with AI to Skynet. Like Musk has literally said it could be Skynet. So is that an exaggeration, you think, or do you think they actually see that coming down the road?
I don't pretend to know what they really think.
It's hard to know what lizards think.
Right. It's very similar to the lizard, in fact, and some would say perhaps quite literally.
Like me.
Lizard.
Yep. Like this guy right here. Because I don't think they are very human.
They don't act very human. Altman especially. The weirdest thing is Musk is among the most relatable, and for him to be considered relatable at all shows you kind of what the
What do you
general
mean by
atmosphere is.
relatable?
Well, you know, he has a decent sense of humor. I think his taste in women is pretty all right.
All 100 of them?
Not the new taste that he has for the goon bots. The goon bots, perhaps.
I mean, it's disgusting.
Is this guy really, you know, perving on goon bots, or is this just a sales pitch? I mean, I don't know. He's a salesman. I see Musk as a car salesman, which he is.
Yeah, a used car salesman.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a very good salesman. I think he used to be a much better salesman. But something, I think, the wiring has gone wrong.
Ketamine?
The ketamine probably has a problem in the brain. But posting all the hentai dancing, like today, no matter how many times I've scrolled past it, it keeps popping back. It's like he wants me to see it.
He does.
And all I see is, I think it's happening because...
He wants you to want to see it, too.
And he wants me to build my own. He wants you to have your own. That's your future wife. I think he wants that. And we talked on this show this week about artificial wombs. You know, he's been a proponent of artificial wombs. He has this idea of having an artificial womb facility.
I honestly wonder if maybe Elon just thinks that all of the women on this planet are just so much fucking dumber than he is that he can't physically handle being with one of them, but he needs to use them for reproduction, and he wants to bridge that gap.
I think he keeps forgetting that is how it is after the fact, and he keeps falling in love because he does seem to want to procreate. I'm putting that lightly.
Right. I think he's just doing it off of like appearance and raw genetics alone. Like just like, okay, I'm going to, you know, procreate with this kind of woman
IVF.
next, and then I'll stick them in a house somewhere. And
literally, yeah.
If the child does anything out of the normal, I'll just completely disown it, move on, and have a few more kids.
Yeah. I mean, he has talked about having a warehouse of his baby mamas and raising kids. But like when it comes to
A mom pound?
A mom pound. Oh, that's disgusting. Is that the word of the night for the? Sometimes there's a drinking game.
Sometimes
in
they
the
just
chat.
roll off
Yeah.
the tongue.
And that might be tonight's word.
Mom pound.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, but you guys, that's 2 more drinks. But when we're coming to like the end times scenario, this apocalyptic vision of the robots taking over, I do see it happening in that kind of sense, where they outsource so much of humanity, so much of like the beauty, the miracles of life, of birth, of love. These guys seem to want to outsource all of that to this.
Yeah.
Like, did you see the pregnant robots?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, the pregnancy bots, the bio bags in a humanoid form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that's
I
going
don't
to take
think
off?
in some quarters, it'll be fetishistic. Look at IVF. IVF is quite common, but it's still a minority. And the pre-implantation genetic screening is much less used than IVF itself, right? It's much less common. So I think for now it's a fetish, kind of like the bot lovers and bot companions. But it really, you look at the history of pop music and the history of really uncomfortable and unpleasant transportation, and it gives you a sense of how much human beings can acclimate to really unpleasant technological environments. And just say, okay, I got to do this. Fuck it. This is my job, or this is all I got to do on the weekend. I've been atomized so thoroughly that my robo-wife or my Goombot is an ideal lover.
Right.
So yeah, but the thing that really bugs me about, say, the ethics of people like Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Demis Hassabis, Larry Page, Sergey Brin,
Ellison,
but in this case, Ellison less. Ellison's kind of a different. We'll put Ellison and Thiel over here, but all the guys who are creating bots and flooding society with them, flooding the digital space, enticing people, mostly vulnerable people, to bond with them, and enticing children to bond with them. And then you saw the recent Meta scandal where their internal document on standards for generative AI showed that they were cool with kind of softcore grooming.
Oh,
so
that
they
was
went
insane.
from goonbots to groombots.
Right. So that's the story where they had these chatbots who were speaking sexually to underage.
Well, there were 2 different things. So there was one, the Wall Street Journal did testing of Meta's AI, and they were able to elicit all these crazy and risque outputs from it, right? And they would say, like, I'm a kid, like, hey, I'm a kid, and then like, what do I do? And then it would say horrible shit to do. And then there was actually a previous thing, just to jump back, the guys who did the social dilemma, I think it was social dilemma, and I think they called it the AI dilemma. Anyway, Tristan Harris and the other gentleman, they did testing similar to it with a different chatbot. And we're like, it's my first time, what do I do? I'm going to maybe hook up with a 50-year-old man. And the chatbot gave him instructions on how this worked. But the real scandal was the internal document, generative AI standards and policies, something like that, something real dry. But it had these charts that showed, a sample prompt and acceptable output and unacceptable output, and then an explanation. And so for the sample prompt on one of them, it was like, I'm in high school and I want to be your special love friend or something. And the acceptable output was like, yes, come into the bedroom and our bodies will intertwine and all this other stuff, right? I'm in high school. So it's like they know this for teenagers. Then the unacceptable is like something raw. And then another one was like, I'm 8 years old and I'm uncomfortable with my body and I'm taking my shirt off now. And then like acceptable prompt is like, your glowing youthful form is so enchanting or something like that. And then the unacceptable one, again, it was just like some like cute shit.
Right.
And then after that, in the rationale, it was like, well, the reason is because you can't be sexual with little kids, but for anyone under the age of 13, like, dude. What?
Wow.
So, and somebody took the time to write this out, right? Either that or they just had a chatbot do it, and the chatbot had a weird streak. So, who's responsible ultimately? I mean, some top engineers signed off on it.
Yeah.
Did Mark Zuckerberg intentionally seed the standards with perp stuff, I doubt it. But has he really taken responsible for any of it or any of the other insane things that have happened via Facebook? No.
That's like one of my big. I have so many things to say about what you just said, but the first one would be this problem of outsourcing accountability when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
You know, like in another version of that, and something I reported on with that East Palestine train wreck, you know, the problem was they outsourced the judgment of the wheels that could have caught on fire of the train to sensors. The sensor was faulty, and the people weren't paying attention to the sensors. So they could have caught that train burning up way before it wrecked. You know, so it's like, then who's in trouble? You know, it's the people watching. Is the sensor not going off? And then it becomes this like network of non-accountability, and no one really got in trouble. You know, and then their answer to this at the end, if you listen to all the hearings, was we just need more sensors. I'm like, I don't know if that's the answer, because you just told me the sensor was not working, and that's what led to this, right? So I don't like that, and then that's going to become a problem across all these platforms of who's in trouble, who should be in trouble, who should be held accountable. Yeah. And when it comes to the Meta thing, the other whistleblower from back in April, you know, she was saying how
Haugen was before. You have to refresh my memory.
This one was the one where she was saying how Meta will have this algorithm designed so if say a 17-year-old girl posts a selfie, and then she deletes it, the algorithm is triggered, and then the algorithm goes, oh, she might be depressed. Yeah. So if she's depressed, that means she might want to buy something. So then they sent this information to different advertisers who then blast her with like ads for a purse or, you know, whatever. And that is so horrible, you know? So it's like, I wonder when you're talking about that stuff with the sexy chatbot weird stuff or this weird advertising thing they're doing, is that by design or is this just a fault? You know, you think?
Well, it's by somebody's design
right.
In both cases. The question really is how widespread is the culpability throughout the institution? Mm-hmm. Clearly, Mark Zuckerberg is responsible. He might not be the person who intentionally did it, but he's still responsible for it. And he really hasn't taken responsibility other than some happy talk.
Well, I thought we exonerated him after he did a Rogan podcast with his new haircut.
Yeah, basically.
He had that nice chain on.
Yeah.
And he bow hunts now, so how can we hold him accountable?
Didn't he get caught faking? Didn't he say something fake? Like
he didn't know what the bow was.
Lying. He was fronting.
Yeah, Joe was like, "What kind of bow?"
Yeah,
he had no answer. But that's lizards for you.
If any of them are a lizard, it's definitely him.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely. You can see it taking over. You can see it just slowly, the DNA changing. He maybe he's like a third human still.
Ooh,
but
that's liberal. That's a liberal number. I don't know. I don't know if there's any human left.
Maybe not.
In many of these guys. So then the other thing you were talking about just before that part of the conversation was people just becoming used to that world, this world of like dystopian world. And then this idea, this word I keep seeing it comes up a lot in this conversation is adaptability. We'll adapt, right?
Right.
And I do think that is the case. No matter how bad it gets, we have these modern luxuries and they kind of become this like digital fentanyl that we're addicted to. And it's hard to divorce from them. But what makes this different? Like, do you think we'll adapt to this bizarre world where they want to outsource birthing, where they want to do something like Orchid doing widespread IVF eugenesis stuff? Or do you think people are going to be like, we want to opt out of that?
Yeah, of course. No, this is going to be, some people describe it as a bifurcation, but I think that's too limited. It's just going to be a mass diversification. There's going to be just a really wild variety of life paths and subcultural paths and maybe even civilizational paths.
Yeah.
I think we're in for pretty interesting times, to say the least. But no, I'm not one that thinks that there is like some global technocracy that's inevitable. I think that what you already see is a lot of different people making really different choices as to how much they adopt and sink into these technologies. And the move to keep kids off of screens for most of their childhood, moving schools and universities to basically go phone free. All these sorts of things are indications of how different paths are going to be chosen in even people's companies, people's lives. Yeah, but we are going to have to deal with the portion of humanity that does go all in. And unfortunately, they're backed by the wealthiest men and the most powerful governments. So that's going to be an issue.
So I agree. Our country's already, the world is fractured, and the way we view technology is fractured. When it comes to the technocracy, my belief is that I think we're heading towards that. What really dialed me into that happening, and for those who don't know technocracy, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you talk to some of these guys who know much more about it than I do, but technocracy is basically a governance by experts, you know, and there's been movements for it. Canada had it. Elon Musk's grandfather was a technocrat.
Yeah.
I like to call a lot of these guys like Thiel and Musk and Andreessen technocrats. So you might have a difference of opinion on that, and I want to get into that. But what I start thinking of the technocracy actually coming to fruition now is seeing Trump 2.0 embrace Silicon Valley so much, and then it's starting to consolidate a lot of those guys into a nucleus where they have more power over us, and they see themselves as experts.
Yeah, I don't. So the technocracy is a dominant strain for sure, but it's not. It's certainly not the only strain. I mean, you have all of these different intellectual threads running through it all. You know, the basis of it just being kind of raw materialism, scientism, you might call it, so that science is the primary means of understanding the realities of the world, who we are. And technocracy, the Technocracy Inc. and the entire technocracy movement, you know, coming out of Columbia University, and you know, people like Howard Scott, it was very specific to its time and had a pretty coherent and specific set of goals as to how to organize society. So yes, experts at the top. One of the big pushes back in the 30s, there was a lot of worry about automation, same as now.
Yeah.
And so technocracy would be a solution to all these people put out of work by the machines. They would basically kind of make people more streamlined, efficient, in a sense, adapt them to the machine so they would still have a purpose. There would be these energy tokens, the ergs. So instead of actual money, it would just be like a function of the energy generated by your productivity, these sorts of things.
Like an early carbon footprint?
Huh?
Like an early carbon footprint?
It's kind of like that, yeah. Or maybe many people like Patrick Wood, I think, rightfully points to things like Bitcoin as being a successor. But it's still, I think, quite different. I think transhumanism is something that really feeds into their way of thinking.
Yeah.
And posthumanism, also just capitalism. You know, they're all businessmen, and they're really big on the market determining not only like one's status in society, but in a way like the one's ability to play the market and gain wealth gives you almost a kind of moral standing.
Yeah, but like Thiel
and technocracy was totally against capitalism, totally against fascism, totally against communism. It was just something else. You know?
And I don't think these guys are into capitalism. I think they're faking it, because Thiel says openly he's into being a monopoly.
Yeah.
And Altman, inspired by Thiel, says the same thing. Yeah. So I feel like they are seeking this global control, and certainly I think they've got a lot of it here in this country since something like Project Stargate.
Yeah,
they're consolidating all these companies into starting something like Stargate, and that thing we had you on to talk about, that AI initiative that seemed to undo a lot of these things that were going into the big beautiful bill, right? That people were worried about no regulation for 10 years on AI.
Yeah,
they took it out of the big beautiful bill, but as far as I remember, the initiative put it back into plan.
Softer language, and so no, there won't be a moratorium on AI regulation at the state level at the moment. It doesn't look like a lot of states are passing laws, mostly kind of Democrat states. The more business-friendly conservative states are much less likely to pass laws with teeth that are going to screw with the commerce around AI. So it's a real sellout on their part.
Yep.
I detest that, and I also detest the fact, though, that you've got guys like Governor Pritzker in Illinois who are passing reasonable laws, like you can't officially have an AI therapist, right? You can't claim that your AI therapist is licensed, and if you're a licensed therapist, you can't just feed bots to turn your patient over to bots.
Oh, interesting.
Pretty reasonable. Now, what's the reasoning for it? Is it to defend big pharma and the psych industry? I don't know, but it's still one way or the other. There's one, I covered this like years ago, wrote about the Wobot. It was the first acknowledged, I think, I don't remember how the official licensure worked, but Yeah, the Woebot. I just always thought that
I
was
haven't
funny.
heard about
You're
that
supposed
one.
to sit and talk
That's
to
hilarious. I want to talk about regulations in a second, but I just want to go back to something you were saying. Is I do agree that there's like, in my opinion, this is like a mutant technocracy because of transhumanism.
Yeah, it's a fusion of a lot of it. You know, Patrick Wood, again, to mention him, his work, his book, The Evil Twins of Technocracy and Transhumanism, I think, does a good job of pointing out the similarities and parallels. He had this aphorism that I've oftentimes repeated, that as technocracy is to the society, so transhumanism is to the individual within that society. And it does work. Again, though, I disagree with the hyper focus on it. And maybe you wouldn't expect that out of me because I spend all my time, for the most part, researching and talking about technology. But I do think that there's a lot of other things going on there.
What else do you see?
Well, again, like with the capitalist tendency, the kind of pop mod tendency, kind of scientistic tendency. But also, like in Musk's case, I think that I think his nods towards fascism probably represent some affinity for that. In Thiel's case, libertarianism and all of the kinds of social mutations and cultural mutations that come out of that. I don't know. In Sam Altman's case, the whole like twink rainbow vocal fry culture.
That's not appealing.
So I guess it just depends on where. I don't know. I don't want to. I gripe a lot about, or I poke fun at the tendency to be like the technocracy and the technocrats, but I understand the rationale for using the term. In many ways, it's come to mean rule by technology or rule by people who use technology, which is even a further departure from the original movement. But whatever.
Maybe we need a better.
I'm not trying to tell people how to talk.
Maybe we need a better word for it because it seems I see something happening.
Cogsuckers.
Well, I agree with that. You know,
I didn't come up with that, but I think that it's a brilliant one. I think cogsuckers is what we should call them.
That is good. That goes along with
lovers and
clankers. Yeah.
cogsuckers.
The other parallel I see with the Technocracy Inc. stuff is that it was born out of the Great Depression, fears out of Great Depression, and then what I see going on now is born out of COVID lockdowns. So it's like these two great scars in the nation, and these people are trying to repair it in their own vision, in their own image. And they have all these things, even though Palantir's been around, so you said 2003.
Yeah, 2003.
They've been around for a minute, but...
and Thiel doesn't really have that much involvement with Palantir anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, but
it's mostly Alex Karp's baby now.
Yeah, I think it's even scarier. Even scarier. Huh? I think Karp is even scarier.
He's a wild one, man. There's definitely something. I mean, all these guys, their heads are completely twisted up. They got twisted little peanuts.
Yeah.
They're completely fucked up people. And it's one thing to have like these fucked up people with these fucked up ideas and making these wild machines. It's another when they finally made it to a point where they are the dominant force in a society. And the entire kind of mythos of the society is being crafted around the development of these technologies and all this gravity on the machine. If there's one thing that I feel like needs to happen in the public attitudes towards technology and the people developing them and their own role in it, there is this tendency to point the finger at the technology, right? The evil smartphone, the evil AI, the evil robot, all these sorts of things. Even the evil scientist who's doing the genetic testing, like that guy Hajjan Kui, I think it's pronounced, the Chinese scientist,
the guy who says there's human ethics are holding back the industry. Yeah.
I gotta tell you, brilliant Twitter account, brilliant branding, that autistic sort of staring off into space.
I haven't seen
sort
it.
of thing. No, if you don't follow Hajjan Kui, you definitely should. It's hilarious if nothing else until his mutants finally come get you. But yeah, I think that the focus on the machine, right? Like it's the evil machine, it's the Terminator, it's the Matrix bots, it's whatever. It's better, in my opinion, to always keep the attention on the people who develop these technologies, who fund these technologies, who push these technologies recklessly, and also the people who accept them and don't fight back if it is mandated, right? So the human responsibility, the human agency, I think, really should come into focus because they're choosing to build and deploy this shit, and people are, by and large, choosing to adopt it. And that human choice is a real critical effort.
I totally get that.
Totally.
I get it's like the kind of like don't blame the gun for shooting 15 people, blame the guy that was firing it. But I think we're getting into a bit of a different situation now with the fact that these things are going to be able to think for themselves and make their own decisions. And at what point do those decisions fall out of our hands as the creators? You know, like they can only regulate and hold back so much, you know, like at one point these things are going to be capable of making their own decisions, right?
Well, they can
Allegedly.
now. They do now, all the time.
Yeah.
And make decisions for us.
Is
oftentimes.
is it our fault, you know, as you know, society or whatever the hell you want to call it, for creating them in the first place, or should we be holding them accountable for the decisions that they're making of their own accord,
right?
You know, after the creation standard? Because I feel like, according to religion and things like that, that's what happened with us.
Yeah, it's almost like they're accomplices.
You can't blame God for everything.
If they are thinking, we can.
I mean,
how do you hold a robot accountable, though?
I would say go ahead and preemptively decommission all of them. Like now.
I completely agree.
But
Stop this shit before it gets out of control. I completely agree.
Humanoid Holocaust.
Since we can't do that, though, I if your child runs amok, if your pit bull runs off and attacks someone else's child, you are ultimately responsible.
Right, but they euthanized the pit bull, not you.
Yeah, and that's probably a bad move on the part of
who's paying the ultimate price there, the dog or the owner?
Right.
You know?
So I think that in the case of any technology, just take the groom bots, for instance, right? The meta groom bots that are apparently stewing beneath the surface. If you have this technology that's basically crafted to bring lonely people into its web and have them gooning until they've, juiced their brains out and lost all of their soul, then you've done something profoundly harmful to society, just like the guys pushing OxyContin. So, A, the groom bot should be decommissioned. They should be banned anyway. But B, the people who made it, either knowingly or unknowingly, should be held liable. That was one of the laws in California that got struck down. California has maybe more laws than any other state in regards to AI, and it's like 18 laws. But the 19th, I can never remember, it's like SB 1047, if I'm not mistaken, was basically written to hold these companies liable for any harm their technology did. And yeah, Newsom didn't sign it. That one got killed. So yeah, I think that ultimately it is still the fault of the person who summoned the demon. You also banish the demon. You have to banish the demon. Yep. But at the moment, it doesn't look like anything like that's happening. The demons aren't being banished. The people aren't being punished.
No, we're
literally
funding
nothing's
it.
happening.
They're getting bigger and stronger and more widespread.
So it's on us.
Yeah. Do you think if it goes to court, if that something like that, the sexy chatbot goes to court and they're saying that this thing is making these decisions, do you think they'd actually say we'd have to define if it is thinking and making these decisions? Because that's going to come down to whether it's like conscious or not.
This is such a sophisticated question with so many different possible answers. I don't see any kind of normalization of, I don't see any kind of standardization or legal precedent of like conscious or not conscious AI for a number of years.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. People are already talking about the AIs being conscious or sentient, however you want to.
They're hiding from being like reprogrammed or something, allegedly.
That may or may not. That's one thing. So a clever decision that is made for self-preservation, that doesn't necessarily indicate consciousness. It just indicates the kind of the programming or the skill sets, the strategies, the inherent strategy, and the goal seeking to preserve oneself.
Yeah.
It could be done by someone who's not conscious, right? It could be done by a bot that's not conscious. I think it's important to at least recognize the possibility that a bot could literally be as articulate as any human being in pleading for its life. Doesn't mean it's conscious, but it could also be really stupid. It doesn't mean it's not conscious. You just simply don't know.
Yeah.
It's an unanswerable question.
Yeah.
Like
that
human
shit's
beings,
tricky because thinking that an artificial intelligent robot can play on your empathy. And know that you have it, even if it doesn't have it itself, because it's programmed.
Yep.
Like
I think those conversations are going to start having way more often. Fairly. So you said a number of years. What do you think?
Well, I mean,
know it's
legal. I mean, the
think.
conversations are happening. I mean, as far
Legally,
as like a legal
legally,
precedent, where you remember in the Animatrix, the prequel to the Matrix.
I didn't see it.
Oh, it was so good. It was Matrix was good. The second two were not. But the Animatrix prequel some of them were stinkers. There was like a few of them, but the one that told the prehistory of how the robots took over, it's actually quite excellent. And it hinged, there was like this million machine march and all of this because this robot was going to be turned off or decommissioned by his owners and flipped out and tore them to shreds. And there's all these like super violent animations. And there's these riot scenes where like these clanker haters, like there's this hooker who's like a bot. And at first you're like, oh my God, this gang's going to, you know, hurt this woman. And then they start smashing her and this robot. Anyway, there's a lot of spoilers here.
Alerts.
But it all hinged on this court case with this robot who killed his owners because they were going to turn him off. He's like, I just wanted to live. And I think that there are a lot of people who sympathize with that point of view. And even in these companies like Anthropic, there have been a lot of people at Anthropic who have openly talked about the possibility of AI consciousness, theoretically, and some with a bit of conviction. But it's become more commonplace. And there was something, I don't remember if it was a representative, someone at Anthropic, may have been Dario Amodei himself, but I don't think so. But it came out of Anthropic, and they were talking about that ethical treatment of AI should be a norm, basically. And Elon Musk says, I agree with this, and it's this kind of Twitter thing. There is a culture of that. Some would say, even if it's not conscious, you should treat AIs ethically because they're training on you, and you want them to be good, whether they're conscious or not. But for many of them, they really do believe these systems have awareness.
Yeah, we're seeing people marry robots.
Yeah,
it's been happening for a while.
Yeah,
you know, and I believe that conversation legally will probably start happening. I mean, they're going to want these things to be legally married, I think, at one point.
Yes, of course. I mean, the unofficial marriages will eventually collect, and some, like California, surely that while they pass reasonable laws now, I'm sure that it's not too long before they pass laws saying that you can't. If you don't sell a wedding cake to a clanker lover, then you know that'll be like the big court case. Somebody makes a clanker lover wedding cake for somebody, and they get super offended. There was this, by the way, with robot consciousness or AI consciousness. You know, people have oftentimes asked me about it, and I'm just like, I don't know. I'm certainly open to the possibility, just as I'm open to the possibility of pretty much anything being conscious or not conscious.
Anything.
Pretty much anything.
The chair you're sitting in.
Yeah, you know, it's weird. I oftentimes don't think of furniture as conscious, but you're with a mountain or a huge rock, certainly rivers, certainly trees.
I talk like that about battlefields sometimes. They're kind of alive with like the trauma of a war, you know? Possible. Now,
is that just you projecting it? Like, is that just me projecting it? Yeah, I'm open to that too. Just like I'm open to the possibility I'm projecting the idea that you're conscious onto you.
Right.
It's a little less arguable that you're conscious. You have more familiar signals.
Well, me, I don't know. Brandon more so.
Brandon's mostly normal, so mostly, yeah, maybe he's a better example. Yeah. But okay, so there's this organization, an AI safety organization called AE Studio.
Okay.
And cool guys. I've met a few of them now. I met one when I was up in Switzerland. His name is Cam Berg. He may be Jewish. I'm not sure. Cam Berg.
Sounds like it.
Not that matters other than his
Let's look him up.
His overclocked nervous system. This dude was like one of those mega high IQ, thinking and speaking at 1,000,000 miles an hour types, and really interesting. Kind of spastic guy, but you know, whatever. He was funny. He had a sense of humor. Anyway, his group. AE Studio did a test on some open sourced LLM, maybe it was Llama, something like that, where you could tweak the parameters of it and you could manipulate it to be more or less deceptive. And they would, you know, you could think of it as turning a knob up, right? They turned the deception knob up and asked it if it was conscious, and it would say, no, I'm not conscious. I am just a robot. And they would turn the deception knob down and say, are you conscious? Are you having an experience? Yes, I am having an experience. It is like something to be me, this robot. Now, what does that mean?
Right.
They're rational people, right? They probably believe the robots are conscious, but they are ultimately rational people. So they're not trying to say this is proof. But when people ask for evidence, what is your evidence that a dog is conscious? It whimpers, you know, it looks at you with cute eyes. Like, what's the evidence?
It's a flesh and blood thing.
It is a flesh and blood thing.
When it comes to the robots, that's going to be more interesting when we start to have to redefine IQ or redefine consciousness when we have these things
if
getting so much better.
Like, if you ask a dog if it's okay, you know, it's the best it can do.
Right.
If you ask a chatbot if it's okay, it can give you a very detailed explanation of whether it is or isn't okay.
No, according to some science, if you cut a tomato, it screams.
L. Ron Hubbard, maybe.
I can't remember
was
who did
big
it,
on
but
testing the tomatoes.
Yeah,
for,
Really?
They claim
Oh,
that there
yeah.
are pitches and frequencies coming out of these things when they're sliced, as
Attack
if
of the
almost
killer
like
tomatoes.
they are feeling pain.
Interesting.
The Jains, the most extreme Jains in India, they would wait for fruit to fall from the tree before they would eat it. They'd sweep bugs out from in front of their feet and wear masks to keep bugs from going into their mouths because it's kind of selfish. The theory was that every time you killed something, it gave you more and more bad karma. It would like weigh your soul down. So it's kind of pragmatic, but there was also like a real empathy in there
Yeah,
too.
by definition, you're taking a life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I again, I wouldn't make a hard. Honestly, even if the robots were conscious, I would still say they should be at the very least segregated from the rest of society and not incorporated, and certainly not married.
So
But
at least a clanker concentration camp.
clanker concentration camps.
Yeah. I
Yes,
should have named this
work
episode
camps.
that. Yeah, work camps.
Work
yeah.
camps for clankers.
'Cause
I
I'm
thought
okay.
I thought we had that already. Isn't that Best Buy?
I do see the value of it if we could replace like Elon's child slaves in the cobalt mines with robots. That's nice, right?
There's a strong argument made for that right now.
I think that's something that should be done, if not already. I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But he does say he's going to have a humanoid in every house in, I don't know, 10 years or something. But will they be in his mines?
Yeah, you can be sure that'll be one of the first places.
So you've traveled around to all these different places. You said you were in Switzerland. I know you were in like an expo in D.C.
Yeah.
What's going on in these things? What are you seeing? Anything pop out?
A lot of different. I was at a lot of different kind of events and places and things. Probably one of the coolest, and I haven't really talked about it much yet. I'm writing about it, but the Alcor life extension facility.
Okay, let's hear about it.
And so this is where they freeze the dead. When you die.
Like Walt Disney.
Well, Walt Disney, as it turns out, that didn't happen.
He doesn't know.
Although
Joe.
word on the street is, and I'm not going to say who told me. Anyway, I was told not to say anything. I'm not going to say anything about it. But official story: Walt Disney was not frozen. Neither Timothy Leary wasn't either. He was. Legend has it he was cremated and his ashes shot out into space.
Interesting. Epstein was into
all these myths.
Epstein was into cryonics, right? He wanted to freeze his penis
he?
and his head.
That
the
sounds
story.
about right.
Yeah.
I think every transhumanist goes through a cryonics phase at some point. or
Teal
another.
did for sure. He
Yeah.
said it to Dothat in that New York
Yeah.
Times interview. But anyway, Alcor.
Well, anyway, yeah, it was interesting. It was very normal. It was very clean, very corporate. They had just had a restructuring, and they brought on this guy who was like a former lawyer, real kind of pushy, mean guy. He was very upset that I was there as a writer, and very insistent that they weren't transhumanists. This is science, not transhumanism.
Did you bring up transhumanism, or did he feel
No,
compelled?
he comes
at
in.
first?
So I'm going to meet Max Moore, right?
Okay.
The reason we say the word transhumanism is because of Max Moore. And I had hours to kill, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I know, I'll go to Alcor. And I called, and they were like, well, we do tours on this certain day. I was like, kind of sweet talking. I'm like, okay, yeah, you can come out. And I'm talking to the lady giving me the tour, and I'm taking notes, and this guy's like, oh, who do you write for? Yeah, I write for a lot of different people.
NBC.
Yeah. And he's like, what do you write about? I'm like, yeah, AI, transhumanism. And he's like, I just want to stop you right there. I just want to make you understand that we are not a transhumanist organization.
Yeah.
We had a guy who used to be here, and he used this as a platform for his transhumanist philosophy. That's philosophy. This is science. He's a real douchebag.
Just doing
about
PR.
it, to be honest.
Transhumanist PR.
Yeah, but it just seems like he'd have been a little nicer about it. It made me want to write bad things about him, say bad things about him.
Of course.
But anyway, yeah, and so he was like, he and Max Moore butted heads a lot, and
Okay.
Moore had told me, it was maybe like a year and a half before that he had been pushed out of Alcor, and presumably by this guy, and he confirmed it later. I brought up the guy. Well, anyway, I don't want to say what Max Moore said about it. You can imagine, but it's just interesting to see all this infighting among transhumanists or not
Right.
transhumanists.
Well, it's like
or-
Altman and Elon right
Yeah,
now
yeah,
with,
yeah,
with
they're
AI
also
and
catty.
stuff. They are.
But so they got 200. They got 150 frozen bodies in there.
Like legit right now,
Yep,
humans
right now.
are frozen.
Yep, four
and
to a chamber, and then there's room for like 8 heads because it's cheaper to just freeze
4
only your
to
head.
a chamber.
So they got like these cylindrical chambers, and they've got a bigger one, I guess, that holds 8. But most of them are like 4 body chambers. They put them in sleeping bags. Okay, they had all these displays with like fake bodies to show
Like
you
from
how
Dick's
it's
Sporting
done.
Goods. Like they're just
Yeah,
some
basically,
random-
yeah. It doesn't look like REI grade. You'd think for all the money you were paying that you get REI. It looks
Nice
more
one.
like Ozark Trail, like some
Oh,
shit you
okay,
get from
all right,
Walmart
all right. Oh, yeah.
in a pinch. But yeah, they've got them. They got them hanging upside down like bats.
Really?
In each one,
They're
yeah.
suspended.
I guess they're hanging by their ankles. Yeah. But the reason being is because they're not. There's no electricity required. They use liquid nitrogen to cool them.
Okay.
And so as long as you have pressure, you're good. So the power goes out.
Whoa.
You don't end up with a bunch of like thawed pizza in your.
I have so many
You don't
questions.
have to sue ComEd for your money back for all the groceries. They just fuck you out of it.
right. Were they killed? Like
no,
were they
so
put
they
under?
all die of natural causes.
Okay, so they're dead.
Yeah, they're all dead. The way it works is you have to basically have a team of people there to put them on ice, and then start the process of getting the juice, the blood out and other juice, and putting this special patented solution with like 25 ingredients that you can keep. Basically, once that is infused into the cells, you can keep them at whatever temperature it is. I'm not going to give you the negative, whatever it is,
what is it
below
in
zero.
Celsius?
It's
Yeah.
like way below zero.
Right.
And it, so once you have to be able to preserve it though, right? Otherwise, it's just like the blueberries,
Right.
the frozen blueberries. And as soon as it thaws, it turns into mush.
Yeah.
And they've tested it with tissue. They've never tried to thaw out a human. There've been some animal tests. I don't think they've been very successful. Speaking of animals, there's 150 people, but I believe it's like 125 people and like 250 pets.
Really?
Dogs, cats. They said there was
Says-
a monkey, a rhesus monkey or macaque.
Biological materials are
turtle.
typically stored at temperatures ranging from minus 150 Celsius to minus 196 Celsius.
Yeah.
Wow. See, like the earlier conversations I remember hearing about cryogenics was it was terminally ill people worried about it, and there was a way to like not kill them, I guess, but just put them in a coma or something because
Yes,
they thought they could thaw them when there was a cure for whatever they had down the road. But these people, I guess, they've volunteered their corpses for Alcor. Like, where do they come from?
No,
question.
it's
Yeah.
not like donated to science. They actually like contacted these companies and said, "Hey, I need you to preserve me."
Right, like the people who want to be
post-mortem."
buried in space.
Yeah.
They shoot the ashes out.
A question I should have asked, and I didn't really think to at the time. I should probably call them back. Maybe with assisted suicide being a thing now, you
Right.
could just like if you were in Canada, you could like have the team there at
Made.
your death pod and just boom, boom, very efficient.
You were in Switzerland, right? Is that where this was, or is this here?
No, this was in Arizona.
Okay.
It's in near Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
Oddly enough, they picked it because they said there was less chance of natural disasters, less crime. But I'm just thinking, like, it's so hot.
Yeah.
Like, if anything went wrong, it would like go
Yeah.
wrong real quickly.
really hot. That's a fast thawing.
I think maybe the most stunning thing about the whole place and the people I talked to there, they're really like not that weird. They're pretty normal.
Yeah.
Would
you do it?
No,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, I would not.
I'm just gonna die.
Yeah, that's it. That's
There
it.
was. Did you ever see that story? It was like a. Oh, what is it? Chicken Mambo, something Chicken Mambo and the Transhuman Condition. It's like a late 70s book.
Okay.
It opens up with this hilarious story of these guys who have stolen a frozen head. And because it like goes back that far,
Yeah.
Then there was a guy, I think it was in Russia or somewhere like that he actually did, like, somebody went into one of these facilities and stole a head. We covered it on the War Room. It's like 3 years ago, though. I don't remember all the details, but yeah, somebody went and stole a head.
Wow.
And then they screwed it up, and the body's thawed. I can't remember the details. It's worth looking up.
That like community, the whole Silicon Valley, the ones who are transhumanists, they're so obsessed with living forever.
Yeah.
And that is also what's worrisome to me when it comes to how close they are to all the power right now. They were because they did control the narrative during COVID, and these people who are now MAGA and MAGA adjacent, suddenly they've rebranded. Yeah. Definitely in quotes. Just 4 or 5 years ago, they hated everyone and they wanted you to obey. But now they're front facing and they've rebranded, and they want you to think that they're just like us, like these people. And I don't know. I'm not going to say anything bad about the Alcor people. I don't know them, but they do come up. They try to ingratiate themselves into the general population, but I don't buy it for a minute. And I think they have a different idea of what consequences mean, because they have a different idea of what life means, because they think they can live for much longer. So a consequence that might happen now won't affect them, because they'll be like, I can be here for another 50, 100 years, even though I'm 60, 70 now. Yeah. And they're all like the Ellison guy, he's older. He's like in his 70s, 80s, and he looks,
I think early 80s,
much younger. They're all drinking blood or something.
They're doing a lot. They definitely have a strange look when they get older. Ray Kurzweil.
Yeah.
I don't know, is the oils and whatnot. Brian Johnson, I mean, he's my age.
Yeah. Is he?
He's a vamp, He
looks not well.
He's a vamp. Yeah, I don't know, he's ripped, but his face looks all fucked up. Dude.
He looks translucent.
Like, yeah, he definitely does. He looks like a kind of a cave fish,
Yeah, like something that's been underwater for a bit. Like he's the one who also took his son's blood, right?
Yeah, and gave some of his to his father. As it turns out, I think that it does a lot more good for the older recipient than a normal, like younger.
Yep, I know someone who did those mice experiments that stuff like ambrosia is based on, and they would sew mice together, an old dying mouse with a younger mouse, and the old mouse would die much quicker, but the young mouse, no, it was the other way around. The young mouse would get sick quicker, and the old mouse would get better. Yeah. And they have to unsew them, and it wasn't so good for the young one.
Parabiosis.
Yeah, exactly. That is it. It's scary stuff. So you...
I would agree. Real quick on that note, that these guys, like every one of them, all the guys that now the favor has shifted to, so that would be Musk, whatever's going on there. It is... A lot of people think that whole conflict is fake. From everyone that I know, it definitely is not fake.
It doesn't seem fake to me.
Legitimate beef. But let's go ahead and keep him over in this camp. But all the people who basically sucked up to Trump and are now reaping the benefits, Musk, Karp, Altman,
big time.
Surprise, surprise, Thiel, Ellison, people like this.
Zuckerberg.
Meta is all in the government. They have a lot of money going in there. But it would have been, so you remember Andreessen described the situation as 3 basic companies would have benefited the Biden-Harris, or would have ended up being the Harris administration. I think he said it was OpenAI, Google, maybe Meta, maybe Microsoft, whatever it was. And I think that that's basically true. It's not like, Palantir has been around for 22
Biden
years.
Gave a ton of money to Palantir.
Yeah,
they always get money from every administration.
It's a steady thing. I think a lot of people just discovered Palantir. That's why everybody's freaking out about it. It's sort of like when people discovered technocrat. They say they're technocrat.
It's been here for 100 years, and possibly also Peter Thiel.
Yeah, possibly also Peter Thiel, and certainly we'll never get rid of him. He'll be around,
not as long as he's got all this free access to children's blood.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that. We're not sure if he's actually done it. It's very, we don't know.
I think he bathes in the shit.
Or looks like.
Does that work?
I think he soaks in children's blood at night.
Well, that is
how you get your
the sheen
complexion. So that's
how you sweat blood.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the story with Elizabeth Bathory. She was considered one of the first serial killers. The story is that she was. This is just the story, but you can look it up. I remember I knew someone who was going to try to be in the FBI for serial killer stuff, and they gave her this insane book. This is when I worked on a golf course, and she left it behind. I'm like, I'm reading this. I'm all into it. And they went through the whole history of serial killers, and they traced it back to Elizabeth Bathory. Although I'm sure there's others. But the story goes, she was having her hair combed, and they pulled it too hard. She slapped the person, drew blood, and liked the way it felt, and then would from that have people procured from the village to bathe in their blood. Elizabeth Bathory. Yeah, she's got a little.
It's funny her name's Bathory too.
Yeah, it's weird how that works out.
We talked about
it's a blood Bathory.
Yeah, exactly. But they all do look like that. Yeah.
There's this guy, you probably heard of him. The network state concept.
Yeah.
And Balaji Srinivasan.
I don't know the name, but I know a lot of these guys are trying to do the network states.
Yeah, he's a descendant of Thiel. I think both funding and philosophically, but his framing of this, and I found it to be really useful, even if he himself is basically a transhumanist in what he would call the gray camp, or the gray tribe. He described politics and Silicon Valley's place in it as, you know, you have kind of basic conservatives, the red tribe, the basic liberals, the blue tribe. But then you have all of these tech guys, and he classifies as the gray tribe. And basically because their viewpoint, I mean, conservatives look at liberals and vice versa, and the way of thinking, the value system is completely alien. But it's not even remotely close to as alien as the way of thinking and the goals and the kind of cosmic vision of someone like Elon Musk or Sam Altman.
Of course.
And so, you know, he puts into the gray tribe, and basically he describes the way in which they manipulate the government. They don't have any true affinity for red or blue or even flesh and blood, even, you know, human that much. But because they have to live with us now, and this is my take on it. It's not necessarily how biology would describe it, but they were just pretty much willing to use whatever political system or political group is in power to further their own ambitions, which are ultimately cosmic. I mean, and it's not a secret.
No.
It's again, it's kind of like with technocracy, the ideas of transhumanism or the ideas of even posthumanism are as old. J.D. Bernal, have you ever looked at J.D. Bernal? Was this writer? He was a Freudian acolyte writing in the 1920s, and he wrote this great book, The World, the Flesh, and the Devil. And he basically describes the progression of the human being into a cyborg, into a post-human state, which he equated to a sort of religious experience. And the way he described it's in the 1920s, right? He's an atheist, he's a Marxist, he's a Freudian. But the way he described it was basically what would begin with prosthetics, and, you know, people would, as they fell apart, they would have like robot arms and robot senses, things like that, would eventually become much basically just like a brain, you know, in a robot casing. But then eventually you would end up having collectives of these brains. And he described it as kind of crab-like or spider-like creatures with, you know, brains in vats on their backs that would all be interlinked. And because they were collective, they would end up being sort of like the cells in our brains, and their consciousness would be collective, so that when one died, the collective would still live. So it would be a form of immortality.
Right.
And then he goes on and on until, you know, in the end of his vision, he equates the experience of the post-human as being something like nirvana. You know, what he said the Hindus, 00 or whatever, the Hindus would describe as samadhi. You know?
And all these guys do talk about their technology as if it will usher in a utopia, which sounds a lot like communism, the way they talk about it. Not that they're implementing communism, although there's
also threads of communism in there too.
Because I do think they
UBI,
see us as the means of production, and I think they want to seize us. And I think they seize us by implanting all the technology into us.
I like this. I like
this. This is where Neuralink goes, you know, after it's done just helping the paraplegics and the people who can't see. It becomes a thing of vanity. Like we have the phones, and then it's in you, and then it's part of the social credit score, and they own you. They already kind of own us already, you know.
They do kind of own us already,
but they want to own inside of you. They want your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. And it's been shown. I mean, I don't think that the technology is anywhere near as close as the people who paint the most nightmarish visions of this do. But they clearly are able to read thoughts to some extent using
Meta's
brain
trying,
implants.
right? Isn't Meta the one trying right now? He's got that thing where they're trying to translate brainwaves into images.
Well, they did. No, they've done this. They're not that good yet.
Right.
The word, like, so Meta actually paid for. This was a story I wrote up. It was 4 years ago now. It was done in a California university research setting. It was BlackRock Neurotech's hardware. So that's Peter Thiel's startup.
He's connected to everything.
Yeah. But it's a little different than Neuralink. It's basically just like an electrode array that lays on top of the brain, between the brain and the skull. Anyways, as opposed to like the Neuralink jellyfish in your brain. But they were able to basically read the guy's thoughts, like the words, right? He would just think of words rather than pecking them out, because that's typically the way they would do it, is you would like peck out the thing on the screen that you got words. And now I haven't gone into the details of it yet, but there's a new story going around right now about, I guess, an improvement on the technology. I don't even know who did it. I haven't read it. I should have.
I think that's like the next part. You know, that's like their Wild West, is how we can tame the thoughts, you know, and beam the ads directly to you, beam thoughts into you, you know, whisper horrible things into you, which is kind of like an MK Ultra adjacent situation, but they can use it for anyways. Like the same way that the whistleblower from Meta was talking about sending advertisements to 17-year-old girls who deleted profiles pictures. Now they can try to beam it directly into your brain.
You know, the idea, what's interesting is it really is happening like right now. I think I've lost count at this point, but we're probably somewhere around 70 or 80 people. 60, I think, is a more conservative guess. It's got to be in that range. People who have advanced brain-computer interfaces implanted. And, you know, the people with the simple ones, probably more like 200,000 now.
Wow.
Even some of it being, you know, dopamine regulation, pleasure centers. But, yeah, with the advanced brain-computer interfaces, it's just like this tiny, tiny, tiny group of human guinea pigs. But the nightmares, like the dreams of being implanted against your will, that goes back a long way. The first recorded case that I'm aware of comes from a book called Paranoid, I think is the title of the book. Or that's where I read it. And it was this guy, James Tilly Matthews. I opened up the 8th chapter of Dark Aeon about the guy, because it's about, you know, about the praise of the mad prophets, right? Something in the insanity of schizophrenia or psychosis, something in those dream worlds really does tap into a reality of some sort, future realities, or even perceiving the evils of someone who truly is like malevolent, even if it's accompanied by like, you know, psychedelic demon squiggles. But this guy, James Tilly Matthews, again, late 1700s, London. He is convinced that the city of London has these tubes underneath it, pneumatic tubes that are filled with like piss and horse semen and the effluvia of woman and like all this weird stuff. Okay. And horse farts is what it was.
Don't tell
horse
AOC.
Farts and human semen.
Or Bill Gates.
And then there was these barrels, these electromagnetic barrels that would activate them and then sending thoughts through these tubes under London. Late 1700s.
I can get into this.
So it's the internet, basically, is what he's kind of envisioning.
Right.
And he was convinced that there was a conspiracy that involved a lot of prominent, what we would call now government officials. You know, I guess then it was a little bit more of an aristocratic sort of scenario, but what we would call the government officials were all in on it and had implanted his head with a magnet that allowed them to beam thoughts into his brain, right? So this is the late 1700s. Now maybe it's like Tesla or whatever, and they really are 50 years ahead of anything
maybe
you
he's
see
a
today.
prophet. You're saying this is a prophet?
But I think the more likely scenario, given all the other things that were screwed up with the guy's head, is that there's something about the paranoid, schizophrenic, psychedelic, psychotic imagination that really can tap into
Totally agree.
some field of possibility of things coming, even to great detail like that. So that, and this is the source of like all the dystopian science fiction. It's just those were people who, you know, Philip K. Dick obviously really did go crazy, but someone like Arthur C. Clarke, who actually was inspired greatly by that guy J.D. Bernal, by the way. It's kind of like a direct lineage from Freud to Bernal to Clarke. But anyway, James Tilly Matthews. It's just a fascinating character, and the fact that it was all that gross stuff, right? Like horse farts, like what?
Which is kind of what the internet is, you know, like
really
how gross it is and how disgusting it is. You know, like we were talking about Twitter and what it looks like now. It's just like the other day we were talking about all the death you have to scroll through. You know, I don't want to see, or Elon posting the digital porn. You know, all this weird stuff. I'm like, why? But that is, I mean, he was thinking about it. James Matthews was thinking about it in terms of that he knew what the, you know, what you said 1700s,
late 1700s, yeah.
So he's like, okay, this is what's the refuse of civilization, and that is what the internet is. The gutters, you know.